Okay, this one's a woozy. Might accidentally start a war with this one, unintentionally, but it's just gonna be what I said before. Increased taking until they have such an extreme loss that they're put into a high-pitched desperation. At this point, we all should be developing immunity to it, so they've got the choices of either becoming more cooperative or just accepting this final last like blowout to their demise. I don't know. So, all right, here's what's going on. As I've already said, there's a structure that is taking energy but not giving energy back. It's absorbing energy and keeping energy there, and at the point that it's absorbing energy, it's charging everybody else for the energy that it has in order to keep up the current that without them doing that would just justify natural existence. So, pretty much as it goes, they have these 2 points of entry, which also seem like points of exit. They have to be points of exit because they have to leave these points open at times in order to allow for communication. Without these points of entry for them to be able to suck from, for us to be able to interact with them through, they would have no entry. They would have no point of being able to suck from. So here, they have to leave these gates open temporarily in order to get their traps, in order to get their deals, in order to create capture energy when they need it. So at that point, energy enters their little absorption gate, and they hold it back and they distribute it to a source, and that source I'm going to describe at some point in this video. This source cannot sustain itself without absorbing energy from everything else. It lost logic. It cannot, because of its disconnection to natural circulation, explain how it exists, and therefore has to take energy from things that can. Now, as a result, energy is supposed to just, at this point, pass through. What's supposed to happen is energy is supposed to go through here and then go out. But instead, because this person wants more, they're holding the energy back and charging people for it to be allowed to continue progressing. Now, instead of going where it needs to go, it goes to their source of piracy. This is a pirate source here. This is the source that pretty much organizes and computerizes this effort in a combined manner. I'll show you in a second. So, what's going on is there are these ideas of challenges. Remember what I said about forced taking. At the point that you're being challenged, it means that you're already being taken from, and that an excuse is needed in order to justify the exposed motion as it becomes obvious. So, what's happening is they've already started taking from you. They've already started doing that, but it's going to become obvious once it passes this threshold. And so what they do here is they claim some sort of challenge. They create a collision, and then they say if you cannot survive that collision, then that is why you're suddenly losing. This is all a lie. You are losing because they are taking from you. You're not losing because you lost anything. You're not losing because you failed the challenge. The challenge is a disguise to distract you from the fact that you were already being taken from by that point. So, by the time you're being challenged, recognize that the momentum of the take has already begun. That's why the challenge has occurred. It's occurring because they're imploding. They're taking in and causing collisions as a result, and those collisions then become the challenges that you face, and once you fail them, which is automatic due to their pulling, will seem as if it justifies this pulling and explains why it's happening. Which is why I spent a lot of years trying to say, hey, you guys know that's wrong, right? Hey, you guys know that doesn't justify this, right? I didn't realize that there was actually no point in talking here, but I needed to figure it out anyway. I'm just one of those guys. So, here's what's going on. This point of piracy works like this with one person. This person has gates that allow for energy to enter and exit, but they take energy and they give out less. Now, this point of piracy is a bit of a central idea. It is not God, but sort of functioning like God, in the sense that it is a connection between a group of people who cannot justify their existence, and therefore are constantly sucking in energy from everything around them, and then trying to charge everybody for the continued flow of that energy, which would automatically sustain everyone regardless. Here's something that I need you to understand here, because I forgot to write this down before I started, but pretty much it's like this. This is their false take system. You gave them energy that justified their field. They held that energy instead of passing it on. Now something's dying. Now something isn't being fed. Now something is not working. This causes a failure in some way everywhere. Now what they'll do is, while everybody is trapped in collisions of failure, they're giving you the energy that you gave them back to you. Okay, we're there now. So here's what they do. They have made a false principle here that is, if they give you more than you need, then they can justify taking from you whenever they want. If they gave you more than was necessary for trade, then they're using that to take from you later on without your consent. And so here's how it works. Because they're already stealing energy, it means that they're doing this. This is energy that was stolen. What they're doing is they're giving it back, but then they're saying, wait a second, because no one knows how to prove this yet until me. This is too much. I gave you too much here. You can't prove that this isn't too much. And then later on, while you're doing something, you're living your life, you're doing everything you can, you've got great orbital balance, something's going on, you're having a good time, or you're doing good. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, something goes wrong and you're making a mistake that you can't explain, and it feels like someone is causing it. This is what this is. You're being stolen from by a false principle, because once again, this is stolen energy that was being given back and then claimed to be given too much of in order to take more energy as a result. So, remember this function. This is what's going on here. Now, what I've done here is an Atsuyuka seal. And what that means is there were people who put on faces that appeared to be willing to communicate because of these open channels that seem to be for the passage of energy in both directions. They seem to be willing to communicate, but no matter what you said, no matter what was done, their goal was always to take everything back to this point so that it could be distributed to their pirate source, this. And so no matter what you did, no matter what was said, no matter what they said, no matter what they presented, it was still with the goal of angling everything back to this point. The Atsuyuka seal comprehends it. It lets them know that we know what they're doing, and it forces them to change their rate of survival. Meaning, now that we're aware of what they're doing, they've got two choices, and we already know what choice they're going to make, so we're anticipating it. They had the choice of either becoming more cooperative and trusting us with the distribution of energy and helping us solve this problem, or they could try to figure out even more deceptive tactics of stealing energy and disguising it. And because of how things have gone, we can assume that they're just going to stay in the momentum they're in because they don't want to change. They would like to keep their absorbed energy. So just anticipate for things to become a little messy for a while. This is what I meant by I might start a war. But we're already going to win it, so it's fine. The Atsuyuka claim pretty much does this. If you were pretending to negotiate without any intention of actually exchanging, you have actually dead-ended yourself. You are taking yourself to a source that cannot explain itself, and therefore automatically losing whatever you give to it. Which means, while it may be able to retain a little bit, it cannot retain all of it. And its loss is generated from its inability to sustain itself. And so, where it's going is pretty much a dead end. A hopeless inability to solve its own problems and take care of itself. This solves your problems. If you fight this, if you break this, you have justified people who will not help anyone survive but themselves and will call us all criminals for not allowing them to take from us. This helps. Do not break this. I don't care what you respect. I don't care what your religion is. Do not break this. This is solving too many problems. So, a collision just occurred. I can describe literally what just happened. I had something in my mind. It was gonna prevent them from doing a lot, so they just did this. There was now suction. Everything became collided, and in that collision, they were specifically aiming for what I was about to say, what I cannot remember at the moment, and they scattered it. They got rid of it. It's fine. I still know what it is, even if they don't want to accept me saying it. Now, as this is energy that's been taken from and held back in order to charge others in unfair ways, this is what's happening. Those forced takes are necessary for them. They know that you need to take that energy back in order to continue their cycle of living. So they're forcing you to take, which is they're imploding everything until you have very little, and because that is unjustified for you, it's making you irrational and causing you to still and violate and break and do things that justify them continuing to do it again. They will continue to do this in a cycle until it's either caught or until another way of sustenance is found. Now that's what this means. This means at this point, you are not taking if you refuse to cooperate. Meaning, you can already sustain energy if you understand what I'm saying at this point. Now, I'm sorry for what you've lost, but you're just going to have to break this connection. That means that whatever this is here, it has what it has. Let it go and move on. It's not worth it. It'll have to survive. It'll have to figure out a new form of cooperation, a new form of survival. That's fine. Now, for those of you who are not listening, remember this. Instead of imagining that you're just taking from something out of nowhere with non-provable context, imagine that you were giving energy to something, and instead of that energy coming back like expected, it was instead absorbed into this thing. Now, instead of imagining yourself taking it, imagine it that you're just realigning your circuitry so that the energy you give is also returned to you for sustenance, for continued circulation. There's no crime being committed. There is no grounds for war. Well, as I've said, we've already won this. This is over. It's done. Okay, I'm done. That's it.